Hi everyone. We are going to study this week actually about the decision structure. And in the past week, we studied like introduction to Visual Basic Language, and then we worked on some basic application development involving the Visual Basic, where we added some code on the buttons, and then also we did some real calculation, arithmetic calculations. Now we are doing the arithmetic calculations or all the other desired actions, but with some decision structure. So you know what is decision structure, right? I mean, it is like whenever your code, I mean, like, let us consider a business case. Like someone wants you to create some application. Let us say the application is about creating a creating some estimate of the cost for different scenarios. Let's say there is a there is a local business that is doing some deck manufacturing. So with the houses, you know, the decks, right? So those decks are being manufactured by a local company, and they provide you three different options. Like let's say, I mean, these type of options in this case. So you have, let us say, the you have three options like the lumber, the redwood, and the composite. So these are the three options, and each option has a price tag with it. So as you go through the code, as a customer chooses one over the another, so what are the cost, estimated cost? So that's pretty much is the driven by the decision structure. So there can be other examples as well, but we focus on this one. So let's move on. So our objective should be how to use the group box. I mean, you will see in the lab actually, that is, when you use a group box, if you implement a control structure on your user interface, the form, and if you use the group box and include different components inside the group box, they will act as a single component, and that's where you can apply your logic, your decision logic, you know. So that we are going to do. That's the use of the group box. And then place radio button objects inside the applications. We have not done that before, and as I have already emphasized during the lab, is that we have select, I mean, checkbox. We have the radio button. What is the difference between a checkbox and radio button? Basically, checkbox facilitates multiple select scenario, and radio button selects only one choice, right? It promotes only one choice. So if you have three radio buttons, you can only select one of them, check on one of them. So this is the definition of the radio button versus the checkboxes. Then the fourth objective is to make decision using if then statements. We will see about it. Then making decision using if then else statement, and making some nested if statements as well. So then you can use some logical operators. You can make decision with the case statements, and you can insert certain code snippets, and you have to be able to test input to ensure the value is numeric or not. So basically input validation as well. So our user interface design facilitates three new objects, that is group box, radio buttons, and message boxes. All of these three are very important for application development using Visual Basic. So The group box object, I mean, you will see it in detail in the lab section, but pretty much it is like this one. Um, Let me show you quickly. So this was our lab, and this one in the middle, deck type, this is the group box object. So you can create a uh, group box and then drag different components inside this group box. In this case, I dragged three different components. I mean, three, not different, three radio buttons. And then each radio button has a label. I mean, these labels are not separately created, these are associated with the radio button. So the group box is basically, I mean, you can create a group box in a desired location on the form, and then you can simply import or add multiple components there. So I mean, these are the detailed description of the group box, but the best practices that we follow illustrated in our lab, this is very simple. Like, first of all, you need to name this form name properly by changing the text. Then you change the fore color, that is the color of the text here. Choose the right font, whatever you select for your application. And sometimes business also dictates that you have to select this one. And then you change the name as I mean, you may change it, you may not change it, it doesn't matter, because box is, in our case, in our lab, group box did not involve any code manipulation. It We used it to read the values of these checks of different radio buttons. So that's why we made the names of individual radio buttons very differently, like composite radio button for the composite choice. For the redude, we used redude radio button, and so on. I mean, that's the approach we have used. So that's what we did for our I mean, this slide illustrates what we did. This is a snippet of what we have done in our lab. So here you can see that you are creating a decking type. I mean, that's the group box, and then you drag the radio button objects from the toolbox onto the inside the group box. That's what I mentioned. Like here, if you see, there are radio buttons here, so you can drag it inside the group box and build up the group box component. So then you have to format those radio buttons. I already illustrated in the lab and also briefly mentioned here. Like, you basically fine tune these, the format, the text, everything there. And also you can make one of them selected, I mean checked by default. That's a good practice when you do an UI, because then it illustrates the purpose, as well as you can choose the most popular, most popular radio button. Maybe somebody who is doing the decking for the customers in a region, in a given region, they know that, let's say, composite is the most popular option, so you select it by default so that the customer does not have to do that. I mean, that's a little bit I mean, it serves two purposes. The one thing is that what I said. Another thing is that it illustrates that you can select one of those, I mean, one of those radio buttons. So once you do that, I mean, it looks like this. I mean, as I said to you, as I illustrated in my picture as well, the same thing. Then you check, like, one of the check boxes, one of the radio buttons needs to be checked by default. That's what is illustrated here. And then there are some alternatives of the group box. The So what is a group box? Let's talk about it. A group box actually it associates items as a group. This allows the user to select one item from the group. It also includes caption text. So in the top, the caption text. So in our scenario, this deck type, this was the caption text. So it has a caption text, and then you can put radio button objects in a group box. So that is the group box, but there are certain alternatives to the group box as well. So in this slide actually focuses on one of those alternatives. So that is called the panel object, the panel. So if you go to your Visual Studio, you should be able to see the panel here. Panel is here. So the panel is basically they have three options. Like you can have a caption. Group box also have that. I mean, panel object does not have a caption. You have to put a label by hand. Then the group box object can contain scroll bars, and it can display labeled border, but panel object is not capable of doing all these things. Again, I mean, like this is a an illustration of the this is the group box object, this is the panel object. So you can place the caption, but for panel object you have to put the caption separately on the top, in the top as a label. So group box is more compact. From previous comparison table, you can see that group box object is much more compact than panel object. So you should be using group box for particularly this type of use cases, the one we are discussing here. Okay. And then comes the message box. What is it? Message box is kind of, I mean, you must be very familiar with this situation that you are filling out some form, something goes wrong, a pop-up comes up. That pop-up is facilitated within Visual Basic Language using a message box. So in our application actually we have also included the message box. You will see the details of its coding in our lab section, the lab lecture. You should see that, of course, but I'm just illustrating it a little bit. So let's say this is the square footage. Let's say we are someone enters a text instead of a number. Let's say a, this is a text, and if that person wants to calculate the square footage, they will get an error that entered the square footage of decking. So I mean, this is facilitated, this pop-up box is facilitated by the message object. Okay, the message box. So, and also we have used some another message box in case somebody accidentally puts a negative number, they will also get some error. Okay, so it is used for alerting the client to see, I mean, whatever has happened. So the message box statement has a general format. I mean, like it is message box kind of message, that's it. So at a minimum you can put this one, message box and a message, but you can also put some message and then the caption. Caption is the input error, that is the caption, or error missing a number, that can also be a caption. So a message box can be displayed during execution with a variety of arguments. In many applications, the caption is used to give further information to the user. Okay. So there can be separate discussions on the buttons on the message box. So you might have seen that our message box object, I mean we put blank in the second option. We have one argument message, then comma, there should be a second argument, we did not do anything there, it's null, and then caption. So this is what is the second argument, there's a button entry. So if you enter the button, then you can do it like, I mean you can say username is missing, then you can do message box style, or you can do one, whatever it is. So you can put different message box, you can put the functionalities of different message box that way. Okay, so these are the message box buttons. I mean you can say okay is 0. I mean if you put here, let's say 1, then it is what, it is cancel. Okay, so you can put 1 is cancel, and there can be a 5, for example, retry cancel. After an error occurs, user can choose to retry or cancel. So basically uh, our message box by default comes with 0 option. So this is simply 0, and then you can have OK cancel. I mean there can be two different buttons, OK and cancel. So that is one. You can do abort, retry, ignore, two. I mean different options are there. So the message box basically comes with different options. So in our case, I mean we coded the message box here. So like I can tell you it is here. So what about if we put 1, and then if we start the application, it should look like this one, and then accidentally we put 1 minus 1 negative number and calculate. You can see OK and cancel, there are two options. But if you, I mean we put by default it is 0 because we only have the OK option. I mean you don't, if it is 0 you don't have to put anything there. For example, I'm going to show you this one, and minus 3, let us say, calculate. So OK option is the only one. So that's about it. But if you don't put any option, let us say, then what happens, you come here minus 2, then calculate, and then OK, and you end up with this one. Okay, so that's about it. Now you can put certain icons on the message box as well. So that is covered by message box style. So you have multiple style options. 16, if you put 16 there, it means something, the user alerts user about the error. If you have a question, it is a question. You can have an alert, that is an alert, and you can have an informational information, then that is informational. So I mean basically in our example, if we would put something like so if we put something like this one, 1 or 16. So let's say we put in our code, where is our code? So here if we put 16, let us say, and execute it. So let's put 1 minus 2, and then you can see you have entered minus 2, so this is an error. So that's about it. I mean that's pretty much it is. So these are the different styles. I mean it depends on what type of information you are trying to convey to your end user. Then I mean there are IntelliSense for message box. You can put like different you can press the tab key to select message box in the IntelliSense list. I mean you can have multiple options there. So if you do message box and then you do IntelliSense, then it will be you will have different options for the message box. Then another thing is, in order to create the message, you can make use of the string concatenation. We have already learned it, but you see here below message box, you entered, then you put an and symbol, which is the concatenation symbol. Then you put the string and then put another concatenation symbol, and then you move on. So then comes the decision structure. I mean, this is decision structure is one of the three fundamental control structures used in the programming languages. When condition is tested in a Visual Basic program, the condition is either true or false. Okay, so let's see. I mean, if condition means if the condition is true, then you do something, some statement. So this is the classic structure of the if statement. This is one of the conditional statements used in Visual Basic programming. So you start with an if, uh, I mean, if word with capital I and small f, then you put the condition. Let us say x is equal x greater than 5. That is a condition. Then you do something and then you have the statement execute. I mean, whatever statement you do, if x greater than 5, then let's say create a message box, and then you put the information, and then you put the end if. So this if that started at the line if of line 5 is ended at the line 7. That is the condition of if and end if block. Then comes the relational operators. The condition portion of the if then statement means the condition is tested in order to determine if that condition is true or not true, means false. So there can be different relational operators. I mean, basically through the relational operators we want to answer several questions, like if a value equals to another value, if a value not equal to another value, if one value is greater than another value, is one value is less than another value. I mean, all these questions are answered using the relational operators. So this table actually illustrates your relational operators. So you can see the first one is equal, this is equal to, example 8 equals 8, that means always true. Another is, I mean, this symbol, the this is not equal to operator. Third one is greater than, fourth one is less than, fifth one is greater than equal to, less than, sixth one is less than equal to. So that's an example is there. So see line number 8, if int age some variable greater than equals 18, then you put some, you are old enough to vote. So and then you put an end if. So here greater than equals, this operator is the relational operator. It determines whether the person's age is more than or equal to 18. With the insertion point located in the correct location in the code, you need to type if and then press the space bar. Type, then you have to type in to select the variable using the IntelliSense, right? And then on the blank line enter the statement that you want to execute there. So I mean, in our code, you'll see in the lab we have created the if statement like this. If lumber, I mean, like in this particular scenario, if this one lumber, this option is selected, so this is there, line number 22, this line, then you do something. I mean, we will learn what we do. Let's call it something. Then you can see that we have some multiple control structure. So that comes with the else if, which we are going to discuss in the next part. So uh, so I mean, let's focus on if block, and we will go to eventually the else if block. So I mean, uh, you put some if statement and then you put the line, and there is a blank line. The statement is executed when that condition is true. Then you can compare the strings as well. If string 1 equals string 2, you can compare. Comparing different data types. Every type of data is available in Visual Basic can be compared. Different numeric types can be compared to each other. You can do that. A single string character can be compared to character data type as well. So then comes, you can do if then else statement. If some condition, then you do some statement. Else, if that condition is not true, then comes line number 18. You have the else. So this guarantees, this particular block guarantees that something, some statement will definitely be executed. So you have an if statement, then you do some statement, some instructions in the code, then you put together an else statement, and then you do some statements. So this block of code guarantees that there will be some statement executed as a part of your program. So that is illustrated below, but basically that's the essence of, the below you see that some specific example, but then that is the structure. You can compare to an arithmetic expression as well. Like if like withdrawals greater than some arithmetic expression, you can do that as well. So and then you can do if then else if. So if this is greater than 500, then you do something. Else if that is not true, then if this condition is true, then you do certain thing. And in this way you can have multiple else if blocks together. So there can be a trailing else statement, like if you do all the if, else if, and then at the end if you do an else statement, it will guarantee that one of the statements will be executed. That is the, it is often considered a good practice to put a trailing else statements to guarantee that something comes out of that control structure. I mean, it may be so that we put some debugs there. Some we want to put it just for testing the code to see if other conditions are not valid, then you go there. Okay. So there can be nested if statements, like you start an if statement line number 123, then you can do another if statement uh, within that first if statement. So the syntax is, you have if then inside that you start if then and you end if. Basically the if statement started line number 124 must be ended before you end the first if statement, which is line number 123. So that's kind of a nested if statement. Okay, so there are multiple examples involved in the slide. uh, so you can see that, like there can be matching. If statements must be fully contained within the outer if statement. I mean, you need to put the correct executing statement in the correct place. Otherwise, you will do multiple attempts to execute the control structure without any meaningful results. So you can, that's what we did do in our lab. You will see extensively our if else if statement, but still I can show you as an illustration. Like here, if we run the code, let's say you put square footage 100, then composite, if it is chosen, that the cost is 850. If you choose Redwood, cost is 775. If you choose Lumber, it is 235. So there are multiple options, multiple choice, and the if statement. This is nested by if and else if statements respectively here. So this is the block. You will see it in the lab lecture. So the scope of the variable, the scope is defined by where the variable is declared within a program. Within an event handler, and if then else statement is considered a block of the code. So you can easily define a variable inside that block. Let's say we define this int years. So this int years variable is meaningful only within the block defined by line number defined in the line number 11 through line number 15. If you want to refer this int years at line number 16, it will throw an error because this variable has a scope within only line number 11 through line number 15. So it says the scope is within the block level. So you can do the logical operators as well. There are three different logical operators you can use in Visual Basic: and, or, and not. So you can do and is basically all conditions tested in the if statement must be true, or is at least one of the condition tested in the if statement should be true. Not is, it basically is a this condition is not true. So you can see here examples of and logical operator here. So you see here line number in the below box, you can see line number 137, you see is less than 300D. So this is true, but you can see less than 120D, this is false. So basically the entire if block should this one, line number 137, that control structure will return a false result. So but or is little bit different. I mean, any one of these needs to be true. In this case, line number 147, you see the first one is false. DEC GPA greater than equal 3.5 is false, but the other one, int sat score, that is 1080, that is true. So then it makes everything true in the control structure defined in 147 line. And the not is basically you say that it is not true. So you say if not something is that greater than equals, that means, I mean, line number 155 and line number 162 has exactly, they carry exactly the same meaning. So not greater than equals 14 means less than 14, right? So there can be other logical operators like XOR and also or else. So refer to this particular slide for detailed meaning of that. So the operators order should be, I mean, the highest precedence is not, next precedence is and also, the last precedence is or else, and XOR. In some programming applications, different operators can occur based on the value in the single field. So enter number of day, you say day of the week, weekend, Wednesday. I mean, determine day, I mean, things like that. In that case, your basically structure should be it may not be facilitated by if statement, but you use a case statement. So basically that is select case, whatever you do test, that is a case, then you put the expression. So then you give the different options for the test case. For example, line number 13 below, but I mean bottom panel, you can see select case int day number. So case 1, let us say first day is Monday, case 2 is the second day, that is Tuesday, and so on. And you can say case else, that is the default case, so that's the I mean, case else is not default case, but it's like if all the cases fails, then you put this one. So that's, I mean, basically more information about the case. You could use the relational operators in a select case statement as well. So that is illustrated here. And you can use the ranges. I mean, case 1 to 3, then you do this one, case 4 to 6. I mean, this particular feature is a great feature of Visual Basic. You won't find it in a lot of other languages. So you might need to determine if you should use the if then else versus the case. Generally, the select case statements is most useful when more than 2 or 3 values must be tested for a given variable. The if then else if statement is more flexible option. So more than one variable can be used in the comparison. Compound conditions with the and, or, and not logical operators can be used for if then else if statements. So I mean, you can press and hold right click the line in the code window where you want to insert the snippet. So basically you can do it in this way. So you can press and hold or right click the line in the code window where you want to insert the snippet. Tap and click. I mean, this is the way you should use the code snippet. So basically you select a block of code and put it in some other places as well. So here, I mean, this is the code snippets you can do. Now developers should also validate the inputs, user inputs. Later in this course you will see that this input validation is critical for your security purposes as well. But for now, let's call it input validation. Whatever is inputted on your screen is being validated by validating the data. So in our case we use some validation called isNumeric. So the Visual Basic isNumeric function can check whether the input value is a numeric value or something else. You know, a numeric value means an integer or decimal, whatever it is. I mean, some numbers. So in our code actually we have used it. You will see it in the lab, but you can see here, I can share the code here. So we have used the isNumeric function. It says whether this particular text is represents a numeric value or a non-numeric value. So if you write ABC, then it is non-numeric. If you write 2.5, then it is numeric, for example. So you can also make check for a positive number. That's what we did as well. Positive number is very simple. That is greater than 0 means positive number. Uh, the program design that is given in the book, but basically this is the program design that we are going to use in our example, and this will be your homework actually. We will give this program design and the use case definition as well given here, and event planning document is here. So finally, so we understood and learned how to make decisions based on user inputs, right? So that's about it for today, and we will be doing the lab exercises. Don't forget to see the lab and get back to me if you need any explanation, any further illustration, any help regarding this topic. But what the expectation is, you will go through the lecture, you will read the slides, you will read the chapter 5 of the book, and then you will also go through the lab and do the lab by yourself and submit it as your assignment this week. Okay, so that's about it for today. Talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.